Next Gen 3D is here, and it's on the Apple Vision Pro. 3D, in general, has been a cyclical trend within movie making throughout its entire history. It became popular in the 50s for like 3 seconds, and then it pretty much lied dormant, with some exceptions, of course, including the absolute camp classic Jaws 3D. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I love it. But in general, you don't really see anything coming around until 2005, where you get filmmakers start dabbling. This was all early days where companies were showing sizzle reels to journalists, like this BBC reporter that gives this absolutely hysterical response to 3D.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you look at the years prior to 2009, there is only a handful of movies released in 3D each year. But within 2009, there was already a groundswell of this new 3D technology being used. And then Avatar had its mega success. And that catapulted the studios to want to post-convert every single movie they could into 3D. I think we do know that most of the story from there. A lot of those post-conversions were either okay or bad. Very few were good. And listen, that's not it. Let's just throw up onto the board everything that was wrong with 3D back in 2010. And this is not an exhaustive list. On top of that, you had to spend extra money per ticket on every single 3D movie. People started to not want to do 3D. As time moves on, you also get more and more competition for your theatrical experience. It used to be regular or 3D, but now you have IMAX, you have Dolby Cinemas presenting in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos, a far more premier experience without the side effects or downsides of what you've been moving through past, at this point, 3 years of 3D. And that is only the theatrical experience. We haven't even talked about the issues of watching 3D at home.
It costs more to make a 3D movie, it costs more to show it in the cinema, it costs more to go and see it. Do the numbers add up?
In the long run, it will probably depend on the emergence of 3D television, which is more on the drawing board now than it is a reality.
So, the future of 3D cinema depends on the emergence of 3D TV. But surely 3D TV will only catch on if there's enough content for it.
And they did try to create enough content. Sports were being broadcast in 3D. Sony added 3D support to their current gen PlayStation. Movies were being released at mass. But compared to 2D, they simply could not keep up. And after a couple years, only 96 3D Blu-rays had been released, period.
This is Samsung's 7000 3D television.
But maybe that could be overlooked if the experience of watching 3D movies at home was so amazing. So what were the reviews in 2010 of the cutting-edge new 3D TVs like?
And I have to say, I'm not 100% impressed.
A little disappointed at the execution at this stage.
As far as I'm concerned, 3D TV still got a bit to prove.
But I'm only going to give them, for now, 6 out of 10.
Okay, so bad. But what about the cost of it all?
All these televisions are going to be about £2,000, £2,500. Add in the Blu-ray player, which is going to be about £350. Add in the £100 glasses, we're talking at least £3,000.
In today's money, that is $5,774. So let's add up all the things that are now bad with 3D at home. With a list this long, it's no wonder that only 3 years later you get bylines like this on CNET. And in an article about which 3D TV type to buy, passive or active, it literally ended with a paragraph like this. Then we move into 2014-2015, where 4K TVs become all of the rage. New buzzwords like HDR, Dolby Vision, ultra-wide color gamuts all become the new what to create for the 4K UHD spec. 3D wasn't even included. Like Emperor Palpatine, 3D has risen from the dead again because of new technologies. But to really get a sense of where 3D is headed, we need to look at the Apple Vision Pro. Because, yes, it's a head-mounted display, but there's actually smaller pieces of technology, and I'm calling it pieces of technology. It's coding, it's software, it's processes. So I'm just simplifying that into technologies. Outside the Apple Vision Pro, there is no such thing as a 4K 3D movie, let alone a Dolby Vision 3D movie, except for these streams. These streams are the highest possible quality out there that exists, and they are only on the Apple Vision Pro. Initially, I thought these 3D movies being trapped on the Apple Vision Pro exclusively was a way to drive sales, and it is, but I actually think it's more than that. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I have to talk about codecs now, and I'm going to make it as brief as possible. And if you stick with me, if you stick with me, I'll show you my dog. She's really cute. She's been asking about you. She needs to sniff your palm to see if you're cool. Technology number one is NVHEVC, which is different than the traditional 3D Blu-ray codec, which is NVAVC. You might also know them by their H.265, H.264. Now, if you're a real codec head, you might be going like, Joe, NVHEVC isn't new, which is true, but at the end of 2023, there was a new update to NVHEVC, which was 10-bit. Up till now, it's been trapped at 8-bit. What's the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit? For this video, it's the difference between being able to finalize a movie in SDR or HDR. Oh my God, what does this all mean? Well, basically, with the updated version of compression, 3D can now be streamed at home in 4K Dolby Vision for the first time ever. And by the way, that's 4K per eye, which leads me to the second technology that I want to discuss that is brand new, and that is Dolby Vision Profile 20. Joe, what? Okay, if you don't know, Dolby Vision has different profiles that are used for different use cases, right? So Dolby Vision A is for theaters. Dolby Vision B is for 4K UHD. Profile 20 was developed seemingly with Apple for the Apple Vision Pro, because this is the first Dolby Vision profile with 3D as a delivery spec, which is amazing. That is opening up a huge new opportunity for 3D to be included with Dolby Vision at home. You can now get the same nit level HDR that they're delivering to theaters. So in a lot of ways, this is the closest to a theatrical release you can currently get, because when you go to Dolby Cinemas and you see a Dolby Vision projection, they're projecting the movie at 108 nits, which if you came home and watched a 108 nit HDR movie, you'd be rightfully upset because that would be insanely dim. But the Apple Vision Pro isn't done there, because it also allows high frame rate and true motion cut. Now, what's that? So that is basically VRR for movies. That's used mostly in moving shots to help reduce shutter and judder. But could Apple expand this to its devices? Absolutely. NVHEVC is backwards compatible and has been added to the Meta Quest headset. And NVHEVC is what the iPhone 15 Pro uses to capture spatial video. So clearly, Apple is all in on NVHEVC as their 3D codec. In terms of high frame rate or VRR implementation, current gen Apple TV has HDMI 2.1, so there's no bandwidth limitations there. So yeah, both of those features could be included in future firmware updates. Apple has updated to include new profiles on the Apple TV before. That said, Dolby's FAQ page does hint that Profile 20 may have a hardware component, which I'm sure Apple is very disappointed that they have to create a new Apple TV to sell to you. So if that meant absolutely nothing to you, just here's the takeaway. Next Gen 3D is here, and it's on the Apple Vision Pro. The bad news in all of this is that means the future of 3D will absolutely not be on physical media. There's no way they're going to go back and release an updated spec to 4K UHDs to include 3D. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. I don't see it. I just see next gen 3D living in the streaming sphere. What do you think? Am I completely off base there? All right, let's go ahead and put up that everything bad with 3D scoreboard again. And as you can see, there's a lot that gets crossed off this list. There are so many elements of bad 3D that we had in 2010 that this new technology completely fixes. Not everything, but a lot. Don't know if there's a mass market appeal to 3D in 2024. I don't know if that exists anymore. And I don't know if the ability to shoot spatial video on your iPhone is going to convince anyone to come to the other side to see why 3D is so great. I don't know if people are going to start shooting their home videos in 3D, and if they are, well, then we're going to need to have displays that are more prevalent to watch in 3D. Because as we've discussed, it's a very small pool. There's projectors and there's headsets. And to access any of them, to watch it, it is a tech-intensive process. If it's a headache, literally or metaphorically, a consumer is not going to do it. And the frustrating thing is because of the bizarre state of 3D, we are finally at a point where it could work. TVs are bright enough, projectors are bright enough, glasses are cheap enough, and there's a decade's worth of movies ready to be screened in 3D. But because it was so early, so foisted on us, by the time we have reached a point where the viewing experience of 3D could actually be good, no one cares anymore. All right, subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a nice one. Oh, I didn't forget. Here's the video of Indy. Indy, what's that? What is this? Sit. Sit. Good girl. Good girl.